I cannot believe that another year is almost behind us. And while I'm still working on my 2026 projects and goals when it comes to language learning, I thought in this video I would look back on everything that I have and haven't been able to do for my languages this year. So, my big kind of overarching goal for this year was to stop hopping from one language to another and focus on no more than two languages. Specifically, I wanted to focus on Italian and German. And I would say that this goal has been achieved because, for the most part, besides maybe the 2 days when I tried to learn the Arabic alphabet, and also besides thinking about Polish a lot, I didn't really venture outside of these two languages. Mostly, of course, I was focused on my Italian, but at times on German as well. So let's start with Italian. I started the year with a pretty good level of comprehension, if I dare say so myself. I was reading books, I was listening to podcasts, I had no problem understanding TV shows for the most part, or my teachers during my Babel Life classes for that matter. But one thing or three things that I wasn't really working on until this year were speaking, writing, and grammar. And naturally, those were the three areas that I wanted to address this year. And I will say that I'm really, really happy, if not with the results, then at least with the amount of effort that I put into speaking Italian this year. In the beginning of the year, I was taking a lot of classes with Babel Life that has since shut down. Those were group classes, but I don't think I started being super consistent with my classes until somewhere around late July or maybe even the beginning of August. And that was the time when I found my current tutor. And I think I owe my consistency to her for the most part because I have taken one-on-one classes before for many of my languages, definitely for Polish, Korean, Spanish, and it's just never been something that stuck. But this year, I have taken 47 classes and I talk it 30 minutes each. When it comes to Babel Life, I don't know how many classes exactly I took. I imagine it was around 20, like maybe 17 or so. But like I said, since the platform no longer exists, I unfortunately cannot go back and see the exact number. And then also towards the end of the year, I think in October, I started my in-person group class here in New York City. And that was 14 hours, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I literally went from not a lot of speaking practice. I did do Babel Live last year as well. But again, those are group classes and you don't really get to talk a lot there. And then I also, at that time, my level was not really that high. And so I think this year I've made a lot of progress, both in terms of my skills, but also in terms, first and foremost, I would say in terms of how much time I dedicate to speaking. Another goal of mine was to get serious about Italian grammar and stop relying solely on my knowledge of Spanish grammar. And this is another one where I'm pretty satisfied with the results, I would say. I have been able to finish two kind of like general grammar study textbooks that cover levels A1 to B2. And I also finished a smaller textbook that specifically focuses on Italian conjunctions. And just like with speaking, I would say that there's still so much to learn, to practice, to internalize, but I did put a lot of effort into improving in these two areas, and I think that's what counts. Writing was my third area of focus, and here I will say I neglected this one for most of the year, pretty much. I did manage to write about 20 essays, I think, but that was in a span of like maybe 2 months, 2.5 months. So it never became something like a habit for me. So I think definitely that is going to be something for me to work on in 2026. And then last but not least, reading. Reading in Italian, I would say, has been going great this year. And as always, it's the thing that motivates me to do everything else that I do for my Italian. I'm currently reading my 29th book in Italian this year. And there's been so many small achievements in terms of reading for me. I definitely got a lot more comfortable reading physical books, even when I don't have my phone next to me to look things up. I also have discovered a lot of new authors, and I continued reading some of the authors that I found last year and really liked. I have also reread some of my favorite books, which for me is a new thing, definitely. I am not really big on rereading things. Oh, another thing is that I started my commonplace book and also my reading notes type of journal. I did make a video about my commonplace book if you're interested, but all of that I consider to be part of my reading practice. And I think, yeah, reading is like one area that always makes me happy no matter what, but also just the amount and the quality of the stuff that I have been reading makes me really, really happy. So what's my current level in Italian then? Allora, è difficile da dire perché non ho fatto nessun esame ufficiale per scoprirlo, però quando mi sono iscritta al mio corso di italiano qui a New York, io ho scelto il livello B2, ma poi mi hanno trasferita al gruppo C1. E questo ovviamente non vuol dire che io abbia già il C1, ma forse che mi ci sto avvicinando. Chissà se nel 2026 farò l'esame per scoprirlo, ma non ne sono sicura perché l'esame costa un sacco di soldi e non è una cosa assolutamente necessaria per me. Quindi vediamo. Now let's move on to Spanish. My Spanish honestly has been severely neglected this year and the year before as well. And it's mostly because I'm really paranoid about my Spanish influencing my Italian, because even up until this day, my Spanish is stronger than my Italian. And so whenever I get exposed to it even a little bit, I always feel like my Italian just goes out the window immediately. But even then, I have managed to read 5 books. Most of them were either super short or like graphic novels or an audiobook. I do think it's a good number given that it wasn't really something that I was trying to do deliberately, but I would like to start reading a lot more in Spanish in 2026. And I kind of have a plan for it already, and I'm going to talk more about it in my 2026 language goals video that's supposed to be coming out right after this one. And finally, German. This one has been kind of tough, I'm not gonna lie. I definitely did a lot less than I was planning or hoping to do, because I do think that in the beginning of the year, I was actually thinking that German would be my main focus and not Italian. However, that did not happen. But even then, I would still say that I did quite a lot for German this year. For example, I finally finished my A1 textbook that I started sometime last year. So in August, I finished that one, and I even started the A2 textbook, and the plan was to finish that one as well. I kind of was hoping to speed run both textbooks because I do have some knowledge left from when I was taking German at university like 10 years ago or even more at this point. And B, because I don't necessarily care to have like all the concepts, all the grammar, all the vocabulary like solidified in my brain before I move on to higher levels. I just want to have enough so that I can start immersing and basically reading the things that I want to be reading. So yeah, the second textbook I did not finish, unfortunately. I did read quite a lot despite my very low level. I think this is the first time when I was attempting to read things that are like way, way above my level. Like I got so impatient, maybe because in Italian, I'm reading stuff that I actually like. And so I kind of almost developed like an intolerance for reading easier, uninteresting, beginner level materials. And with German, I did read a lot of graded readers, but I started like quickly, upping the level of the materials that I was reading. And I don't think that was always a good thing, because sometimes it was more of a struggle rather than something that was enjoyable. And then towards like the end of the year, I even managed to read my favorite Italian novel in German, but I think the fact that I had read it in Italian twice prior to picking it up in German really helped. But like I said already, I wasn't really able to be very consistent with German throughout the year. And actually, I think I'm going to show you my link stats so you guys can see like the periods where I was active, and then there were like pretty long periods where I was not really doing much. And all of that brings me to the conclusion that I made, that I would not be bringing German into 2026 with me. I'm not giving up on it indefinitely. It is for sure a language that I do want to learn, just because there's so much stuff that I want to read in German. However, there are two reasons why I don't want to focus on it right now. So the first one is that I think overall in 2025, I have spent a lot of time, like probably hundreds of hours, on my languages, even though they were just two languages. And to be completely honest with you, I don't want to spend this much time on language learning. I want to have enough time for socializing. I want to have enough time for exploring other hobbies that have nothing to do with languages. I did say that I want to do more stuff for my Spanish, but my Spanish is at a level where I don't have to actively study it. I just want to read more. And when I do read in Spanish, it's going to be stuff that I'm interested in, not like graded readers or books for children or anything like that, right? And that kind of has been the case with German, that I have not really been able to find media that is at my level that I can enjoy. And so that brings me to the second reason. I felt like this whole year I was kind of dragging my feet when it comes to German. And at this stage in my life, I'm not learning any of my languages for practical reasons. I'm learning them as a hobby. I'm learning them to have fun, like for entertainment purposes and so on and so forth. And German was not like doing any of that for me at this current stage, right? Like it was not fun. And obviously, yes, I have to kind of overcome this like beginner stage where I can start having fun. But if currently I'm getting everything that I need from Italian, and I could potentially be getting it from Spanish as well if I was spending a little bit more time on Spanish, then why would I try, to like spend more time on German? I don't know. I kind of went back and forth on it because I do feel like it's a pity, because this year I spent a lot of time in German, but it wasn't like enough to overcome that like beginner phase, to finally get out of it and, start consuming things that I enjoy. And so I almost low key wish that I either spent a lot more time in German or spent none of it, because I was kind of neither here nor there. And as a result, I kind of lost all my like passion or enthusiasm that I had for it in the beginning of the year. So this is my final update for 2025. And as always, I'm very curious about how you guys are feeling about the year in terms of your languages or any other things. And thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon in my next video. Bye bye.